Hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Rachel. I thought I would just hop on here. I should be going to bed, but instead I'm gonna get on here and talk about my January reads. I am already like a week into April. I just want you to know that this is how my life is going right now. Everything's just a little harder than it needs to be. Nothing's really wrong, but everything's just hard. Just a little harder. So I'm going to talk about my January reads, which my theme for the month was fairy tales or book of the month books, like catching up on them. So I have a big old stack that I'm going to try not to injure myself grabbing. Here is my stack. I did really well this month. Okay. These are in like reverse order. Okay. So the first book that I read was actually an audiobook. So this is a series that I've wanted to listen to for a while. So this is Every Heart a Doorway by Seanan McGuire. The premise of this series, they're like little novellas. So this one was just a few hours, like 3 or 4 hours. So the premise of this is that these kids go to like Wonderland or Narnia or like the Land of the Dead, and they come back and they're changed and they like can't acclimate into society. So a woman built a school for them to be at where she tells their parents that she's going to teach them how to come back into society, but really it's just like a safe place for them to be who they are while they wait for their door to open again. So there's also like a little like mystery in this. It moved pretty quickly, so I gave it 4 stars. I really liked it. I will read more books in this series. I think there's like 6. So it was good. And then my first book of the month book was The Fortunes of Jaded Women. And I wanted to like this because I really want to learn more about like Eastern cultures. And so this is about like Vietnamese women. So a few of the characters like lived and worked in Vietnam, but the rest of the family is in America, like in Los Angeles. I only gave this book 3 stars because it was just I wanted to like it, but it was very chaotic and there were a lot of women to try to keep track of. So it's just about like this family has a curse on them that they never have sons, and so it's just a lot of family drama. I honestly couldn't tell you like the point of the book is like family. Love your family. But yeah, it was just very chaotic. So I won't really recommend this one. And then I read The Lifestyle, which is about, so the main characters, her and her husband both work for a New York City law firm, and she walks in on her husband going down on some woman that she works with. That's like her mentee. And then she still tries to like be her mentor afterwards. It's a little strange. The main character is very like type A perfectionist, so she's like trying to be perfect at her husband having an affair. So she decides that swinging is the way to get her marriage back on track. So, she runs into an old flame. There's also like the drama of trying to like swing with your husband, and it's weird and interesting. So I found this book to be delightful. I gave it 4 stars. It wasn't really what I thought it was going to be, but I really liked the main character, even though she was very flawed and crazy. And I thought the book moved. I liked it. So 4 stars for that one. And then I read, for my book club, I read Still Life by Louise Penny. And I just gotta say, no matter what I try, guys, cozy mysteries are not for me. I listened to this audiobook and I had to restart it like 4 times before I could like figure out who the characters were. It was so boring. I'm sorry. I need for my thrillers to be thrillers. Like I need my murder mysteries. I want to like worry that someone's gonna get murdered. This was just like too cozy. Just too much. I gave it 3 stars because like it wasn't a bad story, It's just not my genre. I need to like stop trying. And then I needed a real thriller, so I read You're Invited, and this is about the main character goes back to Sri Lanka for, right? I think it's Sri Lanka. Yes, Sri Lanka. So she goes back for her frenemy's wedding that she's invited to, and she thinks it's weird because her best friend is marrying her ex that she has a bad past with, but you like don't exactly know what the past is. So she goes back. There's all sorts of drama. The bride goes missing. She's a suspect. So we're trying to figure out like what happened in the past, what their falling out was, where the bride went, and if the groom is evil, you know, like all that stuff. There's also just a lot of like Sri Lankan culture in here, which is very interesting. So I gave this one 4 stars. It was an unreliable narrator, which isn't always my favorite, but yeah. It moved quite quickly for how many pages it is and kept me reading. So 4 stars for You're Invited by Amanda Jayatisa. And then I read Hester. So this is my October book of the month from last year. So I have always really liked the Scarlet Letter. Like, I get it. The Scarlet Letter of the book it's dry, but I just always like Hester Prynne, man. Like, she was wronged. She was wronged. She was impregnated by someone, and he wasn't like made to wear this Scarlet Letter or anything. Like, just made me so angry. So I just thought this is like a retelling. So our main character is Isabel. There's like storylines from like the Salem witch trials, or like, no, I feel like before the Salem witch trials. There's multiple storylines about witches that are kind of being like woven in the background. And then one of our main characters is Nathaniel Hawthorne, who wrote the Scarlet Letter. And so it's like kind of the backstory, like who his inspiration was. So Isabel is the main character. She meets Nathaniel Hawthorne. He goes by Nat. She can see color. So I think it's like photosthesia. Gotta see if I wrote it down here. Synesthesia. So it's where you like, when people speak, you see color, if that makes sense. So like when Nathaniel's speaking, she sees his words in red. So she uses that to do some embroidery. I just thought this was so clever. It moved really quickly. I love the synesthesia like storyline and how like, yeah, like in the 1800s, 1600s, you're gonna be thought you're a witch because you can see people speaking in colors, like if you mention it. Yeah, I don't want to give too much away. I feel like I already gave a lot away about how amazing it is, but I love this. I'm pretty sure, yeah, I get 5 stars, 5 stars across the board. It was so entertaining. I love the premise. I love the retelling. It's great. Hester by Lori Lico Albanese. And then I read, this was, I think, the book of the year for, it might have been Goodreads, but for book of the month, it was the book of the year. So Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin. So this is the story of they're friends from when they were little, and they write games, like video games together. So I'm not a gamer, but this was still very entertaining. So yeah, it's like their lives. One of the main characters has like chronic illness and chronic pain. So it was an interesting perspective. It was just enjoyable, and it was more about friendship than anything. Like, I don't know what else to say about this, really. It was a good book. I gave it 4 stars. I took a point off just because at the end it did seem to drag a little bit. But yeah, it's about friendship and being there for each other, and grief and video games and chronic pain and video games. It was good. And then I listened to Interlude for a Cough here. I just had COVID for the first time in 3 years. And so that's why I didn't film this video earlier, because I have been like hacking up a lung. So We Hunt the Flame was another like fairy tale by Hafsa Faizal. So I went into this book expecting it to be, I was told it was a Mulan retelling, which kind of like, it's a girl who pretends to be a boy, to be a hunter, because hunting is illegal for girls. I feel like they did a lot of world building. I'm very interested to read the second book. I think there's 2 or 3. So I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know that I was paying attention super great while I was listening to it. I had a really hard time listening to audiobooks this month. But I did like it. I will read the next one. So basically, they're in this land where all the magic went away. And then there's like this like forest that's evil and is kind of like taking over. So it reminded me of in Shadow and Bone, I can't think of what it's called. Like the darkness that's like across the land. So it's kind of like that. It's like an evil forest, but like she can go in it and hunt. So it's like she kind of has magic. And then there's also a prince who's an assassin, and his dad is evil. And you feel like they're probably going to get together. And they're sent on this quest. So she's on this quest to get magic back to the kingdom, and he's on a quest to stop her from his dad, but I think he also wants to help her. So it kind of ends like on a cliffhanger. I will read the next one. So it was pretty good. And then I read The Children's Blizzard, but I don't have the physical book anymore because it was a book club book. So this is by Melanie Benjamin. This book, man, I gave it 4 to 5 stars. So at the end, the author just like kind of like just didn't wrap it up. That's why I took a star off. But oh my gosh, this book, it had me reading until like 2 a.m. because this is a story of a blizzard that just like popped up in like Nebraska and South Dakota and maybe North Dakota too. So just like 1800s immigrants, they're like trying real hard to like work up this dust bowl, right? And so there's lots of different perspectives. So there's a newspaper man that his whole job is propaganda to try to get immigrants out to the prairie, and they like basically like they want people to settle this, but it's awful. It's just an awful land to settle. It's not good for farming. And then you have like bad weather and like tornadoes and stuff. So then there's another few perspectives. So there's a black bar owner who's another perspective, and he's kind of like just a little perspective. And then there's 2 school teachers who are sisters. So this blizzard happens like as kids are being let out for school, and it was like a nice like 30-degree day after they had been like stuck inside forever, and then it just like was an awful blizzard. Like people froze to death steps outside their house. So of course this happens as the kids are coming home from school. So like just hundreds of children dead. So the 2 sisters that are school teachers, they make different decisions, and you see how that plays out with like what they do with their children. And it's just like the after effects as well. So like people who survived the blizzard, then like they've lost people. There's a whole another storyline in here. I don't want to give it too much away, but like I loved this book so much. I read it so fast. There was so much to talk about in our book club, but also like I didn't know about this blizzard that just like killed hundreds of people. And so apparently it just like happened super fast and they got tons and tons of snow. And like you couldn't see like in front of you, like 15 like feet ahead of you, you got like lost. Which we read this kind of like just after the blizzard we had around Christmas. So if that felt very real, like I cannot imagine if you had to be stuck out in that. And then it was like a snap freeze. So like horses literally froze to death because like the air around them froze. It was crazy. I love a good tragedy. I'm sorry, but I just love to read about that. So I gave that 4 stars. It would have been 5 if she didn't just go off on a tangent in the end. So it was great. Highly recommend that. Then I read Small Angels by Lauren Owen. So this was my August of 22 book of the month. This is like a creepy mystery, kind of thriller, like gothic horror a little. It has a lot of things. So Small Angels is a little chapel that this couple is getting married at. And the bride is not from the area, so she like doesn't know the lore around the chapel. And her husband or fiance just kind of brushes it off and is like, it's just a story. It's just a story. It's not a story. Okay. It's real. The woods are haunted by an evil spirit, and you learn more about why and the family that like guards it and how they like wronged this person and how they wronged them again. So, yeah, it was good. It was creepy. There's a few different like kind of love stories. I don't know. Like, it was good. It kept me very interested. I gave it 4 stars. There were some scary parts. It was a fun little mystery. I liked it. Then I listened to Little Thieves by Margaret Owen. So it says in the synopsis that it's a remake of The Goose Girl, but I guess I don't really know what The Goose Girl is. So I can't tell you if it was like a good retelling or not. There was a lot happening in this story, so I feel like I kind of wandered off in my mind and again didn't listen very well. But I gave it 4 stars. I liked the premise. So our main character, it's like, this is why I took a star off, because just the thought of telling you about this is confusing. Our main character is a thief. Her godmothers are Fortune and Death, and they want her to serve them. So she's trying not to choose between them. So she is trying to get by without them. She's got a curse put on her. And so she's trying to like break this curse. But she also stole someone's identity. But then teams up with that person. There's a love interest. There's an evil man who he's trying to call in spirits and do bad stuff. There was a lot of stuff going on. It was entertaining. But I feel like I would kind of need one of those like yarns to figure out everything that was going on. So 1 point off for just confusion, just a little bit of confusion. Sometimes you just need straightforward books, you know? Like my brain just can't handle that right now. And then I read The Book of Cold Cases by Simone St. James. So I read The Sundown Motel by her. So she writes thrillers that also have like a speculative. So she likes to write about ghosts, like the ghosts are the murderers. So it wasn't shocking to me because I had read her other one. So I kind of knew. I guess the ghosts are in the murder. I don't know. Like I'm not going to ruin anything, but like there's ghosts. So if you don't like speculative stuff, don't read this. It's not like a straightforward murder. So our main character, so there's like 2 main characters. Oh my gosh, it's like my brain just shut down. So a murder happens, like 30 years, 40 years, 50 years ago, long time ago. So the main character, her parents were murdered. And then recently more people were murdered. And they're wondering if, so she was acquitted of killing, oh man, I gotta think this through. There's multiple murders over different time periods. So her parents were brutally murdered, and then she is acquitted of other murders that happened. They thought she murdered them. She's acquitted, but like the whole town still thinks she's a murderer. So she kind of like lays under the radar. Then I guess our actual main character does like cold case. So she does an interview of the other character. She agrees to interview her, and then she gets pulled into all this speculative stuff. Sorry, that was so confusing. Murders happen. They're a cold case, and they try to solve them. And it was entertaining. So I gave it 4 stars. Sorry. I'm really sorry for these reviews. Cursed by Marissa Meyer. So this is like it's a Rumpelstiltskin retelling. So the first book in this duology, it was Gilded. And Gilded, I think I gave 4 stars to, because it like built up, and then it was done. And it was like, what the heck? Because it finished up in this book, Cursed. It was so good. I loved it. I loved every minute of it. I loved just every minute. It was very dark, like very dark and creepy. Lots of demons. But the romance is great. The like, you get my firstborn trope was great. The way that it played out. There were high stakes. I loved it. I love fairy tales. Loved it. So I feel like my fairy tale audiobooks were a little bit disappointing this month. So Cursed really brought it home for me. I love Marissa Meyer's retellings. So if you like fairy tales or fantasy, you need to read Marissa Meyer's, like pretty much everything she writes. So Gilded and Cursed is Rumpelstiltskin, and then she has Heartless, that's the Queen of Hearts, and then she has the Lunar Chronicles, which is like Cinder, Scarlet, Cress, and Winter. So those are like Cinderella, Little Red Riding Hood, Rapunzel, and Snow White, and they're so good. I love the way that she reimagines fairy tales. They're so good. So I don't know if you're surprised, but that was a 5-star. Just loved it. Loved every second of it. Like that was a book that, and not normally I don't feel this way anymore because I just like, there's always so many more books to read. That was a book that I was like sad that it was over. All right, and then I read The Daughter of Dr. Moreau. This was an audiobook. I am not in a headspace to listen to audiobooks, which I'm also listening to one right now, and I'm not super into it anyway either. Maybe I need to just be done with audiobooks for a second. I don't know. So The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, this is by Silvia Moreno Garcia. So I read Mexican Gothic by her, and I really liked it. It was like creepy, speculative. I keep trying to read more books by her, and everyone I don't like. So Velvet is the Night is about like revolution. I forget what country. It's about I want to say like Cuba? I don't know. It was about revolution. I did not like it. I didn't like the characters. I didn't like what was going on. The Daughter of Dr. Moreau, I thought I would give another chance to. I don't feel like the story didn't move very well. The twist wasn't really a surprise. Like, it was kind of like, well, duh. It got good for like 5 minutes at the end. But I gave it a 3. I don't know. And now I feel like telling you about it makes me feel like I maybe should have given it even less. I feel very critical this month. That one just wasn't it. So I definitely would not recommend that to other people. And then I read Maybe in Another Life by Taylor Jenkins Reid. So I will read anything that she writes. I will. So Daisy Jones and the Six, Malibu Rising, loved them all. I've given them either 4 or 5 stars, every single one of them. So this was an audiobook that I was engaged in. So it wasn't all audiobooks. So our main character has like 2 events in her life. So she moves back to Los Angeles, and in the one like scenario, she goes home with her ex-boyfriend and they fall in love, etc. And in the other scenario, she doesn't go home with him, and she gets hit by a car, and like she lives but is like has to go through rehab, and like it's this whole thing. And like certain things happen in both storylines, and it's kind of like, what's the right path? I really liked it. It was super sweet. I liked, and it she doesn't like choose or anything. They like both play out. So that was super interesting. I liked it a lot. I'm sure I gave that one 4 stars. I like had to take points off though, because she's in the hospital, and it's just, I'm sorry. This is because I'm a nurse, but it is ridiculous. Like, you get in a car accident, you're like in the ICU, and you see your night shift nurse one time in his 12-hour shift. No, friend. He's going to come in there. He's going to wipe your butt. He is going to turn you every 2 hours. He's like going to be like suctioning your mouth out while you're NPO. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, it would make more sense if they had made this character like the charge nurse or something. Like, if they had like cute little interactions every once in a while. But like, to have him be like your primary nurse that you have on nights, and like be like, oh, he just comes in once a night and checks on me. No. He would be the one wiping your butt. He would be the one putting you on a bedpan. Like, I think it would be hard to form a crush. I mean, you could have a crush. It would be embarrassing. But, like, yeah. Like, he would be in your room at least once an hour. So that's my beef for that book. Just the nursing perspective. This is why I cannot read. I cannot watch, like, medical dramas. I can't do Grey's Anatomy. I tried to watch Chicago Med. It's awful. It just doesn't make sense. Like, the show might be good. You can keep watching the show. I cannot get over the fact that, like, you know, the third time that Meredith, like, drowned for 45 minutes and had no deficits. I just couldn't. So, like, when they, like, tape the IV tubing weird and it looks like, I just want a nurse to be on these sets and tell them this makes no sense. So, the only medical drama I can watch is ER. That's it. All right, one last book. I read Babel by R.F. Kuang. So she also wrote the Poppy Wars, which I've read one book in. Babel, this book was hefty. There was a lot going on. So the premise of this book, it's like the 1800s. And Babel is part of Oxford. So this is this is where the language students are located on the Oxford campus, is Babel. Like the town of Babel, like the languages. And I don't know if it's Babel or Babel, okay? It sounds like even the author says it both ways, so it's whatever. So the premise of the story is that our main character was in China, and everyone in his village is dying, and he's whisked away by an Englishman who maybe is his dad, but maybe he's a jerk and never fesses up to it. So he trains him so he can go be a scholar at Babel and do translation. And the hard to explain part of this book is that silver bars have magical powers. So, like, if you write like a word in English and then a word in Spanish on the other side of the bar that are like kind of similar but like translate just a little bit differently, then there's like there's a magical power that you can have through that. So I'm trying to think of an example. So there's like 2 words, I can't remember which language it is, but there's like 2 words on a bar that are like close enough to each other that when you say it out loud, you become invisible. So there's like magic. But the more common languages that they use all the time, because this is in England, are losing their power. So they need to get more languages, but they also are very racist and disrespectful. So like our main character, Robin, is Chinese, and they are incredibly rude to him, but they need his language because that is how they make money. So there's a lot of like racial injustice. There's a lot of like like what's the right thing to do with power like this. It was a lot. It was a lot of world building, and then a lot of like, then it felt like it kind of like got going, and then I was like, well, how are they gonna wrap this up? And it was like a big build up to the end. I don't know. I gave it 4 stars. It was very long, and it felt like it dragged in parts, but it was also a super interesting premise, like very interesting. I liked the main character. I wonder if there will be more. I think I would read another one. Like, it felt like there could be more, but it also kind of wrapped it up. All right. So those are my January reads. I got through almost every single one of my book of the month books. So the only one that I have left now is my January of 2023 book of the month. And I wanted to read this really bad because this is the sequel to The Ninth House. But I didn't want to eat until like my February time. So February, I'm reading romance and books by people of color. So I'm currently listening to Stamped from the Beginning, and it's going okay. I'm just not focused on audiobooks right now. So yeah, and then I'm just gonna read some like Colleen Hoover's and like catch up on all my romance. If you have a good idea for March, I feel like I don't have a great idea for my theme for March. So yeah, comment below if you got a good idea. I don't feel like I can read like all books by Irish people or anything like that. So anyway, that's my January reading. I think I gave 4 or 5 stars to almost every book of the month book that I have gotten over the last few years. So I feel like it's such a solid subscription box. So you should do it. I think they just raised the price. It might be $16 a month now. But I enjoy them so much. And they're like beautiful hardcover books. And they just like look so nice together. So, I mean, at Barnes & Noble, I would probably pay close to $20 for this book alone. So you get them pretty cheap. And I am a BFF, which means I get to pick 2 books in my birthday month, and then 2 months in December, which is why I had Tomorrow, and Babel, because you get to pick a book, and then you can pick one of the like books of the year. So I think, yeah, so Tomorrow was one of the books of the year, or it was the book of the year, and then I picked Babel for December. So yeah, I get 14 books in a year and they were $15.89. So yeah, I would do book of the month if you like to read, or you can borrow my books. All right, I will see you next month to go over some romance.